Welcome to Extraterrestrial Reality. Today I'm going to talk about an article that I just read in foxnews.com, and basically it was giving attention. All this article does is put a spotlight on a guy who doesn't deserve that spotlight, a guy who hasn't ever studied the UFO subject properly, or doesn't even accept the extraterrestrial reality whatsoever, but makes a living doing this by debunking or attempting to debunk the reality of the situation. And it's unbelievable to me that we don't get, instead of getting people who actually study UFOs, right? Instead of getting people like that, like people like Richard Dolan, for instance, like why don't we get him on these in these interviews? We don't get him, but we get this guy here, Brian Dunning, who I've talked about before. He comes from the same mold as the late Philip Klass or Mick West, same. The people who cash in on the skeptic side of things. These people are disingenuous. They don't really study it. They don't know what they're talking about, and yet, but because there's not that many people out there who have podcasts called Skeptoid and talk about. Basically act as antagonists to the UFO/extraterrestrial reality, right? Because there's not that many people, they take advantage of it. I look at these people as parasites. They offer absolutely nothing to this conversation. They hold us back, and yet they're the ones who are given the attention by mainstream news outlets like Fox News. But anyway, here's the headline from an article from foxnews.com. It says, "Skeptic of UFO craze criticizes prominent believers as driven by media attention and not science." And it's talking about Brian Dunning, and he's basically in this article what he's projecting. He's projecting what he's really doing. Basically, Fox News brings this guy on. Fox News Digital actually interviews Brian Dunning, brings him on, and he gets all this attention. And now there'll be people out there looking at buying his books, and for what? What does this guy bring to the table? Absolutely nothing. He's nothing but a parasite on this phenomenon. That's all he is. Anyway, it says here, American writer and documentarian Brian Dunning said UFO believers are driven by media attention and sensationalism instead of science in an interview with Fox News Digital. Well, right out of the gate, he's saying that he's pointing the finger at people in the UFO community, and one of the people happens to be Avi Loeb, which is incredible to me. Avi Loeb, who actually goes out and actually does actual science, unlike some of his colleagues who criticize him. Unlike this doofus who does no science whatsoever, just sits back and does some armchair pontification, just like his buddy Mick West. What's happening here? It's projection. It's pure projection. Anyway, it says here, Dunning targeted a recent congressional hearing on UFOs, also called unidentified aerial phenomena. Let me just stop there. It's unidentified anomalous phenomena. You see, the mainstream news, I keep bringing this up. They don't even care to get things right when it comes to UFOs. I mean, as everybody knows in the UFO community at this point, the acronym meaning has been changed. It was changed for a long time now. It's unidentified anomalous phenomena, not aerial phenomena. But they don't double check. They don't care. They're just looking for a quick buck. They're just trying to get more eyeballs on the ads. That's what it's all about. More eyeballs on the ads. Anyway, it says, during targeted recent congressional hearings on UFOs, also called unidentified anomalous phenomena, for platforming three witnesses who have been speaking at UFO conferences for many years. Former Navy pilot Ryan Graves, ex-Navy Commander David Fravor, and former U.S. intelligence officer David Grush testified before a House of Representatives subcommittee focused on UFOs back in July. Yeah, okay, so he's going to criticize those guys. He's going to criticize these guys right off the bat for speaking about Ryan Graves and David Fravor. They've been talking about it. Yes, that's been true. They have been talking about it for some years now, about their experiences, and they talked about it during a congressional hearing. That's sensationalism. They're actually, they have concerns over, those two guys have concerns over the safety of military and commercial pilots. That's one of their big things. I mean, why is that sensationalism? I mean, they're saying that there's something to this. And David Grush, meanwhile, is saying that there's a cover-up ongoing and that there's crash retrieval and reverse engineering programs going on. As a lot of UFO researchers have talked about for years, for decades, that there is. We all know that there is. Anybody who studied this knows that there is. But this idiot here doesn't believe that. He thinks it's all sensationalism. It's not just it's not sensationalism. It's science. This is science. People want to know. The reason we're trying to get to end this cover-up is because we believe the scientific community needs to try to figure out what's going on. What are these things up to? What are these beings that are here doing? What's the big deal here? That's what we want to know. It's time that we get to the bottom of it. We don't have any answers, and the government hasn't been providing them to us, and they've been covering it up instead. This guy, either these guys, this guy here actually Dunning actually accuses people of you'll if you'll go to his Skeptoid podcast or his Skeptoid website, he accuses people of not being able to use critical thinking skills. It's actually skeptics that who aren't able to use critical thinking skills when it comes to this subject. This guy has no critical thinking skills. Either that, or he's deliberately saying these things just because he knows there's a small market out there for people who don't want to believe in this reality. They don't want to accept the reality of the extraterrestrial presence, so they look to people like Brian Dunning and other debunkers to be calmed down because they're too afraid of this reality, right? And I don't know what this guy's game is, but he gets on Fox News Digital. Who knows how many people, tens of thousands of people, maybe a million people saw this interview or read this article, and they think that this guy's making good points, but he's not, because he doesn't know what he's talking about. Anybody who studied this knows that. Continuing here, it says, they're UFO believers first and veterans second, Dunning said, adding that it's, quote, very easy to find UFO believers who are veterans, end quote. Okay, but some of these people saw them. That's why they've become believers. They've seen the objects up close with their own eyes while they're flying their jets or whatever. I mean, so what are you talking about? You weren't there. Dunning wasn't there. Why is this guy an expert? I mean, I don't understand how come the mainstream media keeps looking at these people. You'll see this guy on TV. You'll see people like Mick West on TV who don't really offer anything. Again, they're parasites on the UFO community. They basically they figure out that there's a group of people out there that don't want to believe in this reality, so they pretend like it's all nonsense, and they just and they talk about it on their shows, and that's how they make their money. And they off their books that they write and their podcasts. That's how they survive. And Dunning, by the way, is sort of point out, I think this needs to be said here. Dunning, by the way, is a convicted felon, and I think we need to point that out here. According to Wikipedia, he was charged with wire fraud. He was actually convicted of wire fraud back in 2013. He pled guilty to it. It says here, in August 2008, eBay filed suit against Dunning, accusing him of defrauding eBay and eBay affiliates in a cookie stuffing scheme for his company, Kessler's Flying Circus. In June 2010, based on the same allegations and following an investigation by the FBI, a grand jury indicted Dunning on charges of wire fraud. On April 15, 2013, in the San Jose, California U.S. District Court, as part of a plea agreement, Dunning pleaded guilty to wire fraud. The eBay civil suit was dismissed in May 2014 after the parties came to an agreement, while Dunning was sentenced in August 2014 to 15 months in prison as a result of his company receiving between $200,000 and $400,000 in fraudulent commissions from eBay. In a statement on his website, Dunning stated that he is innocent and that he only agreed to the settlement because he could not afford to continue the legal battle. That's what they all say. But whatever the case, I mean, this guy's a convicted felon, and he has a skeptical podcast that he does. He writes books, and everyone's supposed to believe him when he's talking about that there's no such thing as extraterrestrials here on Earth, because that's what he says. I don't trust this. You can't trust this guy. You can't trust the word he's saying. He's totally. I can't believe that they're bringing him on these channels, on these mainstream news channels. It's hard for me to. I can't fathom it. Why don't they bring some real people, real researchers on there instead of goofballs like this? Anyway, it says here, Dunning hosts a non-profit Skeptoid podcast that delves into the science behind urban legends. Don't let non-profit fool you. They're making money from it. There's money's getting made from it one way or another. Anyway, it says here, Americans for Safe Aerospace founder Ryan Graves did not respond to a request for comment from Fox News Digital. Yeah, I'm sure that Ryan probably didn't think it was worth his time to respond to anything that someone like Brian Dunning saying. Why would you want to be associated with that? And then continuing here, it says, when asked why major figures in Congress have called on the federal government to release what information it has on UFOs, Dunning said that they were easily convinced. You've got people in Congress who are not scientifically minded, who are not well versed in subjects like astrobiology and astrophysics. And when they are told that, hey, here's some military pilots that have some UFO reports, they tend to take it very seriously, as I think most people would, he said. Let me just stop there for a second. Okay. For one thing, Dunning he didn't sit in on any of these closed sessions that the Congress has been having about this. He didn't sit in on any skiffs, for one thing. So he has no idea what they've been told behind the scenes. You wouldn't have this strong bipartisan effort, not only in the House but also in the Senate, trying to get legislation passed. We already have the whistle. They wouldn't have established whistleblower protections if they didn't think there was something to it. Just because Brian Dunning, who has no idea what he's talking about, sitting at home and wasn't involved in any of the private conversations that people in Congress might have had or did have with some of these whistleblowers behind closed doors, he has no idea what he's talking about. Because of this, he has no idea what he's talking about, and he's making these statements as if he does. He has no clue what he's talking about. But this is great attention. This is a great press for this guy. Now, Fox News Digital contacts him. Now he has all this attention. His Skeptoid podcast grows a little bit bigger. Maybe he gets some more book sales. That's what this is all about. The guy's a parasite, just like the rest of these debunkers. They're all a bunch of parasites. They offer nothing to this conversation at all. They hold the human race back. It's all about money, and who knows what's going on behind the scenes with these kind of people. Anyway, continuing here, it says, but underlying this conversation, Dunning said, was the foundation of belief in alien visitation. Once you start from that foundation, it's very easy to take the next step and say, we'd better interview these people and take it pretty seriously. That doesn't mean that it has any factual or scientific foundation. Well, how do you know? How do you know? What do you mean it doesn't? How could it not have scientific how could there not be any factual or scientific foundation to some of these things that these people have been saying? Because let me tell you something, Brian. This is a reality. I know that you don't believe it, or maybe you're just pretending you don't believe it. I don't know what your motives are, right? I mean, based on your past, I don't know what your motives are, really. But how do you know? How do you know there's no? What do you mean there's no factual or scientific information could be you don't think that could be culled from this? I don't understand how you could come to that conclusion. You know nothing. You're just taking advantage. This guy's just taking advantage. He was contacted by Fox News Digital, or maybe one of his buddies said, "Hey, I can get you some free press." Who knows how this all went down? We don't know. We can only speculate. All right, but this guy has no idea what he's talking about. He doesn't believe in this, or maybe he does believe in it, and he's just using this, he's just doing this podcast just to cash in on it. Because, I mean, let's face it, the reality is this, right? There are a lot more people who are pro UFO / extraterrestrial reality, right, than there are not. I mean, in the world of the internet, right? People like me, it's sad to say, we're a dime a dozen. There's a lot of us out there that we're just sick and tired of this cover-up. We know that something's going on. A lot of us have had our own experiences and know for a fact there's something here, and we're just sick of this cover-up, and we want it to come to an end. Right. So a lot of us, as long as we have a microphone, you'll hear us talking on the internet because we're sick of this. Right. This is the time to do it because of what started in 2017 with the release of those Pentagon videos. Right. But people like this, like Brian Dunning, Mick West, they're parasites because what they do, they see this and they know that small markets out there are these fraidy cats who don't want to accept reality, and they want to be told by, quote, smart people, right, end quote, that there's nothing to this, nothing to worry about. So they're taking advantage of this. That's the way I see it. Doesn't make me right, but that's how I see it. Continuing here, it says, Dunning claimed the UFO hearings in front of Congress and a number of New York Times articles have all been driven by the same core group of UFO believers since they had their first big PR success, getting their article published in the New York Times in 2017, which he said has driven public belief in aliens to around 50%, according to some polls. It's really quite astonishing how easy it's been for the UFO people to sort of steer the public's belief in this subject, Dunning said. Well, let me just stop there for a second. It's about time we're steering the public's belief system toward this subject, because guess what? It's real. They're here. I'm so tired of these nincompoops like Dunning out there saying there's nothing to it. There's no evidence when there's tons of evidence, right? But the bottom line is I saw one of these beings when I was a kid, and I saw one of these crafts, so I know that there's something here. I know that I'm right and this guy's wrong. Anyway, continuing, he says, when asked about some of the most prominent physicists and extraterrestrial life advocates in the scientific community, Dunning specifically criticized Harvard professor Dr. Avi Loeb. Yeah, this is unbelievable. He goes after Avi Loeb of all people. You know, I actually have some criticisms of Avi Loeb myself. But I just don't think Avi Loeb goes far enough. But you're going to criticize someone. I can't believe he's criticizing someone like Avi Loeb, who actually goes out and does actual science while this guy's sitting at home doing his podcast. What's he talking about? Writing his books, going on Fox Digital and just getting all this attention for no good reason when he doesn't deserve. This guy doesn't deserve this attention. This doesn't deserve to be viewed as some sort of an expert on this subject, but yet he does. Just like Neil deGrasse Tyson. You know, Neil deGrasse Tyson goes on TV promoting his next book, right, on Stephen Colbert, and says UFOs are a joke, and everyone thinks it's great. It's not. This is nonsense. This is stupidity. That's what this is. People who don't study the subject at all have no idea what they're really talking about, and they act like they're brought on mainstream news channels in an effort, obviously, to push the toothpaste back in the tube. It says here, you have guys like Avi Loeb showing up in the newspapers and on TV all over the place, Harvard physicist, he said. And it sounds very impressive. What they don't mention is he is completely alone in his belief system. Virtually nobody else in the entire astrophysics field agrees with the things he's been saying. They never present that perspective on TV because it's not fascinating. It's not sensational. What are you talking about? They're presenting you on TV. They bring Mick West on TV all the time. You parasites are brought on all the time to offer a different viewpoint of it, because you don't want to believe it. Basically your non-scientific viewpoint. That's what's going on. That's a lie that was just stated there. Mick West is on TV. You're on TV. You're on this interview here. What are you talking about? There's always these dumbbell skeptics being brought on. Neil deGrasse Tyson. Here's my new book. You know, I don't believe in aliens. Where I don't see any proof. You never looked at it. That's why you're a bunch of idiots. Dunning said that while the, quote, overwhelming consensus in the astronomy community is that there is probably life elsewhere in the universe, that is not the same as determining whether that life has made it to Earth. Now, Loeb did respond to comments here, and he told Fox News Digital that he was not alone in studying the possibility of extraterrestrial life. And the Galileo project that I lead includes about 100 scientists. Let me just stop there. 100 scientists. So there's 100 scientists in the Galileo project that Loeb is leading. So he's saying that there's virtually no one, Dunning is, that there's nobody else that believes in this, in these possibilities. He's making it up. Just making it up for his audience. That's all he's doing. No science involved. Just sit back, armchair pontification, and move on. That's all it is. Anyway, the Galileo project that I lead includes about 100 scientists, so I am hardly alone in studying whether any of the objects near Earth might be of extraterrestrial technological origin. I just want to stop there. Of course, Avi Loeb, actually doing real science earlier this year, went to the Pacific Ocean, and him and a team, and they actually retrieved remnants of an object that came crashing into the ocean back in 2015, and they believe that some of those the remnants of that object might be extraterrestrial in origin, and they're studying it right now. That's not sensational. That's not sensationalism. That's doing science, which none of you guys do. None of the debunkers like Dunning, do they ever give any credence to the evidence? They never even consider it. There's been landing traces cases. These things land, like for instance in the 1964 Socorro, New Mexico incident, where police officer Lonnie Zamora saw a craft landed with diminutive beings walking around who left footprints. The craft burned the ground, burned the vegetation. There was imprints in the ground from the legs. There was so there was evidence. That's called evidence, right? And there's thousands of cases like this. Did Dunning ever go investigate any of this stuff? Does he know? Did he ever look at the objects, the alien implants that were removed from alien abductees by the late Dr. Roger Lear? Does he know anything about that? Does he even know about it? What about all the video and photographic evidence that we have? All the testimony from tens of thousands of people, millions of people over the decades. Doesn't that count for anything? People with critical thinking skills would look at all that and realize, okay, there's obviously something going on here. There's evidence. There is some evidence. There's all this testimony. All these people can't be lying, right? But in this guy's dumb brain, right? It's not true. So they must be hallucinating or drunk or on drugs or lying. No, it's actually you. This guy here, Dunning, does no science, but yet he's rolled out the red carpet by Fox News Digital and granted this interview, which only could do good for him, right? It's unbelievable. Well, again, why aren't they bringing on real experts on this subject? That's who should be getting brought on these mainstream news channels. What about people like who actually study it? You know, even small-time people like smaller investigators like Preston Dennett. Why isn't he on TV more often? That guy has tons of cases that he's investigated throughout the years. That's unbelievable to me, but that you keep bringing these idiots on who really don't care about it, who are only just there to profit on the skeptical side of it because they don't know what they're talking about. It's easy to be a debunker. So easy. Anyway, Loeb's comment continues here. It says, allowing for the possibility that an anomalous interstellar object is technological in origin is not a wild speculation, given that we have launched Voyager 1 and 2, Pioneer 10 and 11, and New Horizons to interstellar space over the past 5 decades, which are a fraction of 1 in 100 million of the age of the sun, he said. There are hundreds of billions of stars like the sun in the Milky Way galaxy alone, and most of them formed billions of years before the sun. It takes less than 1 billion years for a Voyager-like probe to cross the entire Milky Way disk from side to side. It is therefore arrogant and unwise to suggest that we are alone. Dunning posed the question of extraterrestrial life in contact with Earth directly. Has Earth been visited by aliens, he asked? All of the mathematics that we know, all of the physics that we know, all of the evidence that we have suggest that no, that's probably not ever going to be possible and certainly hasn't happened before. Okay, let me just stop here for a second. This guy has no clue what he's talking about. I'm going to tell you right now, Dunning. I've said this before. You know, it's like, I know. I already know because I've seen it with my own eyes. I've seen the actual, I mean, it was brought to me like on a silver platter. I've seen the evidence. I'm telling you, and I'm just one who knows how many other millions of people out there have that knowledge in their head, have that proof, or granted that proof. I don't know. Let's just be conservative. Let's just say 1 million people. But 1 million, me and 1 million other people, right? We've seen it. We know it's real. I've seen a being. It wasn't human. It wasn't. I don't know what it was, right? But it wasn't human. And I've never seen anything like it, right? There was something I've seen when I was a kid. There's no question. And then on a different occasion, I saw one of these craft that made no sound, as big as a house. It was incredible. And at the time, at the moment it happened, it was unbelievable. But let me tell you something. It's real. There's something really here, despite what you're saying, you idiot. Okay, Dunning, who was considered a scientific skeptic, quote, scientific skeptic, end quote. No, he's a debunker. He's a dumbbell debunker. That's who Dunning is. Who is considered a scientific skeptic in that he favors having empirical evidence before reaching conclusions, said he is in favor of applying the scientific method to new beliefs or new claims or unusual observations that people make. So when we're talking about things like alien visitation, a skeptical perspective would be things are probably as the laws of physics tells us that they are, unless we find evidence that aliens have visited the Earth. So far we haven't, and so we stick with the default assumption, which is that no, things are as the law of physics tells us they probably are, and we haven't been visited. Well, again, you haven't looked at the evidence. You never ever consider the evidence. testimony by millions of people over the decades. The video evidence, the photographic evidence that's been amassed over for the past 75 years plus, actually longer than that. We've actually have some pictures that date back to the 1890s. There's a lot of evidence out there. There's a lot of different people who have encountered these things up close. Groups of people have seen them. There's the Phoenix Lights, but which you tried to think you debunked on your stupid channel, on your stupid podcast. You haven't debunked it. Thousands of people saw a giant craft floating over Phoenix, Arizona back in 1997. You deny that. You don't even you come up with alternative possibilities, but it's just too many witnesses. There's way too many witnesses. Continuing here. So when we're talking about things like alien visitation, a skeptical perspective would be things... Okay, I already read that part, sorry. That was the end of the article, actually. Yeah. This guy's... I guess I don't get it. I don't understand. Again, we don't have the people we need showing up on mainstream news. We always get the same old. And now this guy, I mean, he's not really as well known as Neil deGrasse Tyson or even Mick West, for that matter. And I don't get it. I don't understand why the mainstream plays this game. Are they trying to help put this back into the bottle, put the genie back into the bottle? What are we doing? I mean, I'm talking about this all the time. It's time. We need to move forward. And why this guy? Why this guy? Who cares what he says? Does his buddy work at Fox News Digital and got him a gig on there to help him out a little bit? Is that what this is about? Exposure? Give him a little bit of exposure on a big time platform like that? Is that what this is about? I mean, and actually, all it does is hurts the advancement of humankind, because again, people are being fed garbage into their brains. This guy has nothing to offer to this debate. There is no debate. Actually, there should be no debate. It's real. There's something here. I'm so sick of this game. Yeah, they need to bring different people on. This is garbage. This guy, again, he's not an expert in anything. He's just somebody sitting back in a chair. It's like me walking outside and knocking on every door down the street here and finding the first person that says, I don't believe in aliens coming here, and then just interviewing him and not talking to anybody else. You put the focus on a debunker like this who doesn't bring anything to the table, doesn't do any sort of scientific investigation. They just issue proclamations, and there's nothing else to it. It would be so easy to be a debunker. And speaking of that, like, here's another example. On Twitter, there was a little piece here with Mick West again. Somebody published this. Rob Sheridan. He recently posted on Twitter. He wanted a message to people who are just getting into this, who are just starting to investigate this and try to educate themselves on the UFO subject. He wrote, to all you newbies of the UAP discussion, below is a perfect example of the biggest and most common problem with the behaviors associated with debunkers and those who call themselves skeptics. The example below is of Mick West, of course, the biggest debunker of our age, being challenged as he should regarding his behavior. Mick expresses the very same behavior or behaviors in his response below in the same manner when his analysis is questioned. He either 1, denies what he said, lies, 2, leaves out important information, data, 3, ignores others' criticism, and plods along with the, quote, I'm right, you're wrong, passive-aggressive attitude. Frankly, the above are very political style behaviors motivated by bias, not science. These people are not scientific. They're not basing anything that they do or say on science. They think that absolute evidence of this alien reality needs to be presented on their lap, like they're royalty or something. Well, they don't want to seek the evidence for themselves, and the evidence that is out there, they dismiss it or they don't talk about it at all. As we know, there's tons of evidence. There's no need to go through that evidence again. But what he was talking about here, Rob Sheridan, he's like I said, he's somebody who's always commenting on UFO Twitter. He's commenting on an interview that Mick had with Eric. It was a debate between Mick West and Eric Weinstein on Kurt J. Mungel's show. from earlier this year. And Mick was just terrible. Like he wouldn't, like he interrupted when he wouldn't let Eric say, provide answers. He wouldn't. It's just that they're disingenuous. He's disingenuous. He wouldn't be like if any of these people, right, were to ever debate me, they would lose. They wouldn't. They might as well not. They're better off not. They should never ever try to debate someone like me because they would leave probably after 5 minutes because they wouldn't be able to deal with it. They'd probably be crying their eyeballs out like the babies that they are. And then go talk somewhere else after it was over, saying, "Oh, he's a jerk." Well, no, you're the jerks. You're the dopes. You're the dummies. I tell you what, I would love to debate one of these clowns. I would love to debate Mick West or Brian Dunning, and they would most certainly lose that debate. There's no question in my mind. I know that I have truth on my side and they have lies and disingenuous BS. That's all they got. They got nothing, and they would lose that debate. I tell you what, if you want to see someone, I guarantee you, they wouldn't even be able to survive a full debate with me. They would be scurrying off the screen as quick. They would find some excuse and get out of there real quick because they wouldn't be able to deal with it. They would not be able to deal with it. I would make an absolute fool out of any of these debunkers. Any one of them wanted to debate someone like me, I would utterly destroy them. It'd be so great. I would love it. I would love to debate one of these people. It would be an absolute massacre for certain. There's no question in my mind about it. Because I know that, like, again, I'm sitting here, like I've said before, I'm sitting here with a royal flush in my hand. They got a 7 or 8 high at best. I mean, they already lost. It's already lost. They already lost. Actually, so there's really no point in debating, really, when you think about it. But if they really wanted to test it out, someday we'll see. It might happen. You never know. My channel's not that big right now, but it's been growing steadily over. I don't do anything special, right? All I do is I just keep posting stuff on a regular basis, right? And every day it just grows a little bit more, right? Someday it's going to grow. Maybe I'm not looked at by these kind of guys as someone worth debating. They'd probably be afraid. They probably don't want to put someone like me in the limelight because then they're going to know that there's going to be more people out there. They're going to hear me exposing their grift. They're parasites. That's what they are. They're parasites on this whole phenomenon. They have. All they're doing is trying to cash in on it in one way or another. Mick West Metabunk site, his YouTube channel. The more stuff he puts out there trying to knock this stuff down. He's not an expert in anything. All he was a video game programmer. Doesn't really study. Hasn't read a book on this thing, I don't think. I really don't think he has. I don't think he's read anything about Roswell or the history of this. He probably never read any of the books from Richard Dolan. Doesn't know what he's talking about when it comes to the subject. If he were to debate someone like me, he would be crushed. I mean, it would be a terrible time for him. It wouldn't work. They wouldn't have no chance whatsoever to come out on top in that debate. It wouldn't work for them, guaranteed. All right, there's one more thing I want to talk about today. It was recently. There's been a lot of articles about it. It was about Goldie Hawn. She talked about her. She had a UFO. She had an alien encounter, she claims, when she was about 20 years old. And there's been a lot of different news sources have been writing about this over the past week, but I'm gonna use the one from Newsweek. Goldie Hawn reveals alien encounter. They touched my face. It says here, Goldie Hawn opened up about her close encounter with aliens, saying they touched her face and it felt like the finger of God. The actress spoke about her long-held belief in extraterrestrial beings in the latest episode of Apple Fitness Plus audio experience, Time to Walk, saying that they visited her after she called out to them when she was 20 years old. And here's a direct quote from her. She says, "This was a time when, there was a lot of UFO sightings. I remember this so clearly. I went outside my door and I sat on a little ledge and I looked up at the dark sky and I saw all these stars. And all I could think of was, how far does this go? How little are we? How are we the only planet in the whole wide universe that has life on it?" Now, at the time, she was working at a dancer in California, and she was only in her early 20s. The actress then called out to aliens that may have been listening. "I know you're out there. I know we're not alone, and I would like to meet you one day." 4 months later, Hawn was working on a dance job in West Covina, California, when she asked to take a nap in a friend's car. As she settled down, she said she got this high-pitched sound in my ear. While hearing the high frequency, Hawn claimed to see around 3 triangular-shaped heads. Triangular-shaped heads, that sounds like the mantids. Anyway, they were silver in color, slashed for a mouth, tiny little nose, no ears. They were pointing at me in the car as if they were discussing me like I was a subject. And they were droning, she added, and described how she was unable to move during the episode until she was able to, quote, burst out of it. Years later, Hawn said she met an astrophysicist at the University of Illinois Urbana-Champaign who wanted to talk to the actress about her encounter. Getting emotional during the Apple Plus episode, Hawn spoke about how the aliens touched me and it felt like the finger of God. It was the most benevolent, loving feeling. This was powerful. It was filled with light. Hawn would later go on to study crop circles and even dreamed of seeing aliens again the night before a mysterious circle appeared near where she was staying. We got to the spot, and by God, I was standing on this hill looking down over a valley that was dark. That was exactly the spot in my dream, she said. Whether or not her experiences were genuine, Hawn has remained captivated by the concept of aliens and was proud of her curiosity. We can never, ever lose our wonder, Hawn said. It's just no fun. It's really an important aspect of being an adventurer, where nothing is impossible. Well, whether you believe it or not, the reality is that some people do come face to face with these beings at times, and she may have. I don't know for a fact, but it sounds similar to some other cases. Maybe for all we know, she may have some lost time. Some people feel like these visits are a good thing. Some people feel like they're a bad thing and they're terrified. She sounds like she had a good experience, but of course her husband Kurt Russell also had an experience, and their son. As we know, he was the pilot who reported the Phoenix Lights back in 1997. It says here, Russell told the BBC that he was the one to report the headline-making alleged UFO lights over Phoenix in 1997. Several other witnesses also claimed to have seen a strange V-shaped collection of lights moving over the city. The local Air Force base later said the orbs were flares, but that did not stop many from believing they were UFOs. Well, let me just stop there. There were well over 1,000 people that saw those giant V-shaped object hovering over Phoenix and the greater Phoenix area back in 1997. It was an object that some people say you could land, you could fit battleships on them and commercial jets. I mean, they were so big. All these people weren't lying or making things up or having a mass hallucination. They all saw something there, and then of course the government, the military, lied about it and said, "Yeah, it was flares. That's it." Right? Even the governor, Fife Symington, said he saw it too. There was a lot of people, celebrities. Kurt Russell saw it. Here's what Kurt Russell said. He said, "I was flying my son Oliver Hudson to go see his girlfriend, and we were on approach," he said in the 2017 interview. "I saw 6 lights over the airport in absolute uniform in a V shape. Oliver said to me, I was just looking at him when I was coming in. We're maybe a half mile out, and Oliver said, 'Pa, what are those lights?'" Russell continued, "Then I kind of came out of my reverie, and I said, 'I don't know what they are. Are we okay here?' And I said, 'Yeah, I'm going to call in,' and I reported it." The topic of life on other planets has been the topic of much discussion this year after NASA released its report on UAP sightings over the past few years. I'm not going to read the rest of this article, but anyway. Yeah, so Goldie Hawn said she saw aliens when she was in her early 20s. Yeah. Millions of people saw aliens. Some of them don't want to talk about it. I'm talking about it. Some people don't want to believe it. Some people want to profit off it. Like some of these, I think these debunkers, that's what they do. I think that they're just out there to make a profit. I mean, they know that there's a small market of people out there that are scared, and they just want to make a profit off it. So they're just cashing in on that. Debunkers and also, debunkers / whatever you want to call them, debunkers. Some of them are convicted felons, whatever. They're out there, doing their thing, getting press, getting media attention for some reason when they don't deserve it. They didn't do enough research on this to ever be featured on any television show, because these people are just idiots, and they're just they're just trying to cash in on it. That's all they're doing. They're exploiting it for their own purpose. As far as I'm concerned, that's what these do. I think a lot of these, probably the bigger name debunkers, they're in on this for the money. They're just in it for the exploitation and for the attention. It's almost like that guy recently in that Ariel School documentary that was on Netflix. I don't know what his name his name is right now. It's not worth mentioning, actually, his name. But for years leading up to this, after that Ariel School incident in 1994, it was real. Then all of a sudden he decided to say it wasn't real. Now he has attention. He's gotten attention that he obviously didn't get before. For whatever reason, profit probably. I'm sure, like I said before, that guy will probably become a darling of the debunker crowd. They'll use him as a prop for their upcoming podcasts and shows as time goes on. Anyway, I want to say thank you all for joining me. Until next time.